I would ask the senator from South Carolina, do you believe we're still at war with Al-Qaeda? And how important is it that we gather information from terrorists that are captured and that those interrogations are done in a lengthy basis instead of just a short period like a week?
Well, I want to thank my colleague from New Hampshire about being one of the strongest voices from the day you've gotten here in the Senate to talk about the difference between fighting a war and fighting a crime. You've been the Attorney General of New Hampshire. I've been a military lawyer for over 30 years. The legal systems to fight a war are different than the legal systems to solve a domestic crime. Here's the problem. Do I believe that Al-Qaeda is at war with the United States and our values and our friends? Would they kill us all if they could? Yes. Why did 3,000 Americans die on 9/11, 2001? They couldn't kill 3 million of us. If they could, they would have. If you believe that, then the goal of our generation is to marginalize this movement, and when we capture one of them, to find out what they're up to. Dying in their cause is not a deterrent, it's like first prize. So when you tell somebody who's joined up to Al-Qaeda, you may die in the course of this attack, and they say, good. The goal is to prevent them from hitting us. And the best way to do that is through intelligence gathering. So when you capture someone who is determined by our military and intelligence community to be a member of Al-Qaeda, then under the law of war, the authorization to use military force passed by Congress over a decade ago, you can hold that person under the law of war to gather intelligence. Now, why is that the case? War is about winning the war. Enemy prisoners are valuable, captured alive, because they can provide you information about what the enemy's up to. When you charge someone with a crime, you cannot spend a long time with them without their lawyer trying to figure out if they committed the crime because of the right against self-incrimination in our criminal justice system. The military legal system and the law of war is completely different when it comes to asking questions of an enemy prisoner about future military activity or what they know about past operations. The most dangerous thing we could do as a nation is to treat a captured Al-Qaeda terrorist as a common criminal, read them their Miranda rights, and put them in civilian court before we have a chance to gather intelligence. That's exactly what the Obama administration did here. To their credit, they captured Al-Libi. And here's what breaks my heart the most. The special forces units who go into Libya and Somalia and go into Pakistan risk their lives to capture these people alive, if possible, so that we can gather intelligence. It really does bother me that this operation, which was very successful, that we only had control of this enemy prisoner for about 10 or 11 days. You'll never convince me that in that short period of time, we were able to gather the intelligence he possessed, because for 20 years he's been associated with Al-Qaeda at the highest levels. He was a treasure trove of information. So this was a political decision by the Obama administration, not a legal decision based on the law of war. This is not what our military advises, our intelligence community advise. This is what the president has chosen to do because he doesn't want to use Guantanamo Bay. Why was he placed on a ship? Because there is no prison available to the United States other than a naval vessel to hold someone as a enemy combatant under the law of war. Why? Because this president refuses to use Guantanamo Bay. If we can close Guantanamo Bay and create a new prison to allow people to be held as enemy combatants, sign me up. But the idea of not having a jail available to the United States on land at a time of great stress during a very pivotal moment in the war on terror is an ill-conceived and dangerous policy. So I want to applaud the senator from New Hampshire for bringing this issue up. And here's what we need to understand as members of Congress. This policy cannot be sustained. When we capture high-value targets, a 20-year veteran of Al-Qaeda, we are crazy as a nation not to use the law of war to gather intelligence. I'm not for torturing anyone. I've been a military lawyer for 31 years. I believe in the Geneva Convention. I believe that my country is special. I believe in the international regimes about how you interrogate prisoners who you hold. I know what Al-Qaeda does to their prisoners. I do not want to be like them. I want to be the United States. But the United States has a right under the law of war to gather intelligence. The last thing a member of Al-Qaeda should hear when they're captured is you have a right to remain silent, here's your lawyer. I don't want them to remain silent. I want them over time to provide us with whatever intelligence is available. Why was he moved off the ship? Apparently he had a medical condition that could not be treated on the naval vessel. I believe in providing quality health care to prisoners of war simply because I want that standard to be available to our soldiers in future wars. The standard we set today could follow us into the next war, and unfortunately they will be. But having to take him off the ship because he was sick is no excuse to stop the interrogation to gather intelligence. Putting him on the ship because you don't want to use Guantanamo Bay is a ill-conceived and designed strategy that, if it's not changed or replaced, is going to come back to haunt this country. This man possesses an enormous amount of intelligence potential. He is now in federal court. He will be given a lawyer. And once he's charged with a crime, he should be given a lawyer. But before that, we have the right under the law of war to hold him, to gather intelligence, treat him humanely, but question him about what he knows about Al-Qaeda, because they're still out there lurking. So I would end with this. I would like to work with the senator from New Hampshire and anybody on the other side who would like to try to find a detention and interrogation policy that is more rationally based. Guantanamo Bay, in its early years, did hurt the image of this country. Some of our interrogation techniques right after 9/11 hurt us as a nation. Guantanamo Bay has been reformed. It's Geneva Convention compliant. The Detainee Treatment Act that I helped author with Senator Levin and McCain is the gold standard of how you treat somebody under the law of war. I am proud of the system we have created over the last several years in a bipartisan manner, and I would urge this administration to create a vehicle to interrogate under the law of war people like Al-Libi so that we can be prepared for the next attack. And the policy they have in place today is going to deny this country the ability to gather valuable intelligence. And when it comes to defeating Al-Qaeda, the more you know about how they behave and what they're up to, the safer we will be, because they will not be deterred by the threat of death. You cannot deter them. You have to stop them. You have to hit them before they hit you. And the best way to do that is to gather intelligence when you find someone like Al-Libi. And I am very disappointed that we have blown it when it comes to intelligence gathering with this high-value target. And I'm very sad to report to the military members and their families that the bravery you have demonstrated and shown just a few weeks ago has been undermined, in my view, by an irrational political decision that denies our country the ability to learn from a high-value target that you risk your life to capture. So I don't know how to fix this in the current political environment, but I know as a military lawyer it needs to be fixed, and I know that we're not elevating our country by diminishing our ability to use legal systems that have been around for hundreds of years at a time when we need them the most. So I look forward to working with the Senator of New Hampshire, who's become one of the leading voices when it comes to detention and interrogation under the law of war.
I thank the senator from South Carolina, and let me just make a correction for the record. I use the name al-Awlaki. It's Ayman al-Zawahiri, who is the current head of Al-Qaeda, and what I meant to say for the name. And the point is this: If we capture Zawahiri tomorrow, are we going to put him on a ship? And is he only going to be on the ship for a week when we gather information from him to ask him what future attacks are you planning against America and our allies? Does that make any sense? And then we're going to give him a lawyer and tell him you have a right to remain silent? No, what makes most sense is that we have a detention and interrogation policy that, with people like Al-Libi, that we take as much time as we need to make sure that we find out everything they know about Al-Qaeda, protect America. And if we capture Zawahiri tomorrow, that we make sure that we protect America and find out everything that he knows. That's what we're worried about, and that's what we need to do for our country.
Would you yield for a question?
Yes, I would.
We're throwing around names. I think Zawahiri is the person who took bin Laden's place. You know, if we captured him tomorrow, that would be the ultimate treasure trove.
Right.
Can you tell us a little bit about this individual called Al-Libi? Is he just, you know, why do we believe he would be such a treasure trove? What is his background? How long has he been involved in Al-Qaeda? And what have we missed here? What opportunities have we lost by only holding him as an enemy combatant for less than 2 weeks?
So Mr. Al-Libi is someone who has been alleged to have been involved in Al-Qaeda for decades. He is someone who is, as early as the 1990s, was working with Osama bin Laden. He is alleged to have been involved, and that's what he's charged with in federal court, as I mentioned, the 1998 bombings of the Kenya and Tanzania's embassies, and that killed 224 people, including 12 Americans. He reportedly played a critical role as the intermediary between Zawahiri, who we just discussed, took over for Osama bin Laden as the head of Al-Qaeda, in an effort to establish an Al-Qaeda-affiliated operation network in Libya, where our ambassador, of course, was murdered along with 3 brave Americans last September 11th. He has been reported to be an Al-Qaeda computer intelligence and operations security expert, and he is alleged to have been involved in Al-Qaeda strategic planning. This is one of the most important captures we've had in years.
Would you yield for one more inquiry? He was captured in Tripoli, Libya, that's right. Isn't that right?
Yes.
We believe he was in Libya before the attack on our consulate in Benghazi.
We do.
Right? We also know him to be one of the higher-level Al-Qaeda operatives roaming the planet. He was involved in bombing our embassies in 1998 in Kenya and Tanzania, is that correct?
That's right.
What are the odds that he was in Tripoli before the Benghazi attack, had a record of bombing embassies in the 90s, and had nothing to do with the consulate attack in Benghazi? You know, you're a prosecutor. What do you think the odds of this guy not having any knowledge or involvement in killing our ambassador in Benghazi and being involved in the attack on our consulate that was organized by Al-Qaeda affiliates? And what have we learned, if anything, about his potential involvement in Benghazi? How can you learn everything this man has done in 11 or 12 days before you give him a lawyer? I would argue you can't.
Senator, your time has expired, sir.
Could I, 1 minute? Evenly. I would argue.
Without objection.
Thank you.
I would argue you can't possibly understand all he knows about Benghazi and the last 20 years of terrorism by holding him on a ship for less than 2 weeks. He should be held at Gitmo as long as it takes to find out what he knows. Then he should be